In the heart of Israel, during the turbulent 1980s, a new religious sect began to take shape. This group, known as Lev Tahor, meaning pure heart, emerged from the already strict world of Ultra-Orthodox Judaism. At its helm was Shlomo Helbrands, a charismatic and controversial rabbi who preached a return to a fundamentalist interpretation of Jewish law. Helbrands' teachings attracted a small but devoted following. From the outset, Lev Tahor distinguished itself through its rigid adherence to Jewish law, often exceeding the norms of even the most conservative Jewish communities. Their practices included stringent dress codes, particularly for women who were mandated to wear long black cloaks covering their entire bodies, leaving only their faces exposed. Gender segregation was strictly enforced, with men and women forbidden from any interaction outside of familial ties. This stark visual distinction, combined with their isolationist tendencies and whispers of harsh punishments for transgressions, quickly set them apart. The nascent community, with its air of secrecy and unyielding devotion, began to draw scrutiny and concern from the outside world, setting the stage for the controversies that would come to define Lev Tahor's tumultuous history. As Lev Tahor grew, so too did the scrutiny from Israeli authorities. Their practices, deemed extreme even within the diverse landscape of Israeli society, raised alarm bells. Allegations of child abuse and neglect began to surface, fueled by the group's insular nature and strict control over information. Facing mounting pressure and legal challenges, Helbrands made a pivotal decision in the early 1990s. He moved his followers to the United States, seeking refuge in the bustling borough of Brooklyn, New York. However, the change in scenery did little to quell the controversies surrounding Lev Tahor. In 1994, Helbrands became embroiled in a legal case that would shake the foundations of the group. He was accused and subsequently convicted of kidnapping a 13-year-old boy who had been sent to study with him. The case sent shockwaves through the Jewish community and beyond, painting a disturbing picture of the sect's leader. Helbrands served 2 years in prison for his crime, a period during which Lev Tahor's future hung precariously in the balance. Upon his release, he was deported to Israel, leaving his followers in a state of uncertainty and fear. The kidnapping scandal had tarnished their reputation, making their presence in the US increasingly untenable. Undeterred, Helbrands sought a new haven for his community, one where they could practice their beliefs without interference. He set his sights on Canada, a country known for its tolerance and multiculturalism. In the early 2000s, Helbrands and his followers were granted asylum in Canada, claiming religious persecution in Israel. They established a new home in the quiet town of Saint-Agathe-des-Monts, Quebec, hoping to rebuild their lives away from the prying eyes of the world. However, their arrival in Canada did not mark the end of their troubles. The group's insular nature and strict practices continued to raise eyebrows, and allegations of child abuse, neglect, and forced marriages resurfaced. In 2013, child protection authorities in Quebec launched an investigation into Lev Tahor, prompting the group to flee once more. They relocated to Chatham-Kent, Ontario, hoping to evade the authorities. However, their movements only intensified the scrutiny, with Canadian media spotlighting their practices and highlighting the plight of children within the community. The Canadian chapter of Lev Tahor's story was quickly becoming another chapter in their ongoing saga of flight and controversy. Section 4. Flight to the Americas, Guatemala, and a community in crisis. In 2014, Lev Tahor fled Canada for Guatemala, seeking refuge. They settled in San Juan La Laguna, but faced hostility from the local indigenous population. Cultural clashes led to their expulsion later that year. They relocated to Oratorio, but their troubles continued. In 2017, founder Shlomo Helbrands drowned, leaving a leadership void. His son Nachman took over, leading the group into further isolation. Section 5. A legacy marred scrutiny, legal battles, and the uncertain future of Lev Tahor. The death of Shlomo Helbrands did little to quell the controversies surrounding Lev Tahor. Under Nachman Helbrands' leadership, the group's situation became even more precarious. Allegations of child abuse, forced marriages, and human trafficking intensified. In 2018, several leaders were arrested in a joint operation by Guatemalan and US authorities. They were accused of kidnapping 2 children from New York and smuggling them to Guatemala. The case brought renewed attention to the plight of children within the sect. The Guatemalan government launched raids, rescuing dozens of children. These operations were lauded by human rights groups, but met with resistance from Lev Tahor leaders. Despite the challenges, Lev Tahor persists, highlighting the complex issues of religious freedom and protection of vulnerable individuals.